is not the intro. There we go. All right, welcome back, Squids.
Hey, sorry, I'm just trying to get those links out there, man. How are you, Garrett?
I'm doing good, sir. How are you?
Doing good, living the dream. Getting well, definitely the appropriate time to have this conversation because I'm trying to figure out if I'm experiencing top signals, bottom signals, mid signals, or if like my antenna's just freaking broken.
Don't worry, as long as you're with me, we'll keep it aggressively mid.
Yeah, okay. Cool, man. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I've been through a few cycles, so like I don't really care. And one thing I was mentioning on like the one of the streams earlier this morning is like I don't think I've ever sold crypto into fiat. Like I've only been one direction, fiat into crypto. So like it doesn't really matter to me if the market is at top or bottom. It's actually like slightly better for me if it's at the bottom.
Yeah, well, we'll get into like top signals and like kind of the point of this episode, right? In a minute, but like I do just like want to start with like a higher level like chat, right? Because so as a veteran of many cycles, like we're going into my second one here, right? Like I joined kind of in 2021 when DeFi was just like well established and had a ton of energy. And like let's just take price out of this conversation for a moment. Like what really freaks me out right now going into hopefully another bull cycle is like I don't really feel like things have progressed past like what was going on in 2021. And like sure, DeFi is like a little bit cleaner, a little bit smoother. Like sure, there's like all of this infrastructure to like deploy new chains, but like the paradigms haven't really changed at all. And like the technology is like a little bit more performant, like definitely more gas efficient. But like I'm nervous that like if the whole way this works is each new cycle brings on this giant wave of retail, that's what pushes prices up, then like things crash and then the tide recedes, and like some people like really like get interested and stick around. Like I'm not really sure what substance there is this time for people to like stick around for,
Yeah, that's fair. So I look at this at the moment and there's like so many good things compared to where we were even just 4 years ago, right? Like it's hard to think back to just how like primitive the scene was relative to now 4 years ago, right? Like it was the start of DeFi summer where we had all the food farms and like all the like scams that didn't stick around, but like a lot of the DeFi stuff was in its infancy. If you look at where Aave is now with V3, Curve V2, and Curve USD launching, Protocol FX, I'd put that up there. Like 1,000 really cool protocols have like really been building, and the infrastructure is so mature now. But then we also look and we see that like what's the big story that's been going on this past week is Pump.Fun. And like that's super depressing. Like whenever you come on here and like black pill about things, it's that bad. Like let me pull up this. So I don't actually follow Pump.Fun, but as a recap of what happened this week, back when Pump.Fun was allowing live streaming, a guy threatening to hang himself, a kid saying he'd shoot his entire family with a shotgun if his coin didn't hit a certain market cap, someone threatening a goldfish with a gun, threatening to shoot a dog, which is completely unforgivable, a dog committing lewd acts with a woman, a guy in a cage saying he'd commit lewd acts in it, someone else refusing to get off a toilet, and that's all I remember. And it's just like, it's insanity, man. Like...
Wait, just sorry, while you have this up, hilariously, Kobe's response sounds awful. Got a link to the woman and the dog one. So right on brand, right? And by the way, that's not me, Rex, different Rex. But like let's definitely like talk about Pump.Fun, right? Because like I do think I've been talking to a lot of let's say like people that are not like particularly like affiliated with like one like Ethereum maxis or like whatever, right? But are just like here to just like be players in the industry and like have really been like championing the whole just like Solana movement we've seen over the last like, I don't know, year or so. And something that these people have said to me is like, look, like the reality is that like all of the activity for the last year has been in like basically memes and this just like kind of like speculation in its purest form, content, right, or whatever, like projects. And like the Ethereum people, they just like kind of like thought they were too good for it, right? Like they just like turned their nose up on it. They said like this isn't real stuff, like like whatever, Solana can have all this pumped out fun meme coin stuff, like doesn't really matter. And I personally agree with that. I don't think that comes from like the standpoint of like, oh my god, like this is like morally wrong, like not interesting stuff, and therefore like Ethereum people are rejecting it. I think it comes from just like being bitter and like a little bit sour grapes that it's happening on a different chain and not on Solana, or sorry, not on Ethereum. But like what I do think is like valid, right, is that if this is what this cycle has brought us, like this is like the innovation that crypto delivers for this cycle, like I don't really know how bullish I am, not in the short term or price reason, but like for what is the point of this technology?
So the silver lining I see in it is that one of the values of cryptocurrency is that is able, like it's a technology stack that can disintermediate the middleman, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like part of that is like the horrible content that like everyone finds objectionable doesn't get censored. So I guess like the plus in this is that Solana, which is super centralized, people always say, like didn't remove all this stuff from their platform, which is kind of like this litmus test that they're willing to allow like complete and utter garbage. Now Pump.fun like disabled their live streaming, of course, because like there was, I think on Polymarket, there was like the bets were like 97% chance that Polymarket was going to get banned in the United States. And
so I actually saw that, and it said 97% chance by the end of the year it will be banned by the US. And I was like, that is an incredible bet that I would like to take the other side of. That market doesn't actually exist.
Oh man. Okay.
Yeah.
It's too good to be true.
Yeah. Dude, nothing is going to happen in the US in the next like month and a half. It's Christmas.
That did surprise me. Yeah, I was actually going to take the side of that bet too if I was a gambling person. So okay.
Yeah. But yeah, man, I do think it's like objectively not helpful and like comes from bitterness for like Ethereum people to like look at like Pump.fun and like what's happening on Solana and just be like, this is like bad, right? Like I do think that it represents like where the energy is right now, and like that should be celebrated, right? Like Solana went through some shit.
No, honestly, like if they're shooting dogs, like I'd object to that if it's happening on Ethereum or Solana. Like
Yeah, you're right. Like it's really, really bad. Like it's just as bad, if not worse than SBF, right? And so like, look, maybe things got like out of control, and like we realized like, okay, maybe we don't want to like put a streaming platform tied directly to meme coins, but this activity can just continue, just like on Rumble or on what are the other like free
you're
speech?
right. It will.
Yeah.
I'm sure it will.
Yeah. So I just, again, like to take like the broader step, like if this is what, like we went through all these cycles, we did develop this like L2 centric roadmap. We like figure out all this cool stuff in Solana. We have all this ZK, and the application that this stuff is used for is meme coins.
Okay. So like to try
it doesn't
to be more
feel like
optimistic,
DeFi,
though.
right?
Right, but to be more optimistic about it, it's sort of like complaining about the internet because a large portion of it might be 4chan, right? Like,
true, yeah, fair enough. But I guess like my thought, like let's go back to what you tell me, right? But like what it felt like at the end of 2020, and again that involved COVID and like so much craziness. Like things were different, right? But like those food farms, like, yeah, it was very like Ponzi like, but there was it had more substance than this, right?
so I think back then it was a few things. Like one, everyone was like stuck inside, so it was like like everyone was stuck in front of their computer screens, and if you didn't want to like read COVID news, you had DeFi. That was about it. But that being said, like back then, you could make the argument that it was people betting on the technology eventually finding its way. In the same way, in like the year 2000, there was the internet boom cycle. Everyone was super excited, and obviously the internet became a thing. It just wasn't pets.com that valued it like whatever ridiculous sky high valuation that ushered in that new age. So now we're actually starting to see, like, on some level, some of the technology like finding its way out. I think we're still actually like pretty far away from a lot of the potential of what could be implemented. Like, we're still talking about like DeFi apps. I still think there is like room to do things like all the services that we take for granted, where there's a middleman extracting the cut. This isn't my idea, by the way. But like Uber, Airbnb, like all those like applications getting rebuilt in like a crypto backend, which is extracting a lot of the value that the middleman is taking and replacing by smart contract. I think it's going to be big. So I still think that like there is like massive waves to come. But the killer use case for the blockchain so far has been like all the financial applications, because that's such a huge part of the economy. And to be fair, like all that still needs to make its way on chain. Like stable coins is a fraction of where they're going to be, in my opinion, like et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, no, look, I could definitely like, I've said this to you many times, right? Like the killer feature of like crypto, right? To me, it is like, yes, things like DeFi are cool, but it's just like the basic capabilities that blockchain brings to you, right? And I've told you this before, like I've wired over $1 billion when I was, not my $1 billion, right? When I was working for a company, and it is so crazy how it works, right? Like you essentially tell your bank, like send the money, and then literally the bank pushes out money from their account into correspondent banks. You call them and you say, hey, where's the money? Like, and they will flat out tell you, like, Rex, you can't call us every 10 minutes. The answers are still the same. Like, we can't track the money until it settles. Like, shut up. And like that, I think, is a killer use case of crypto, right? We can just send money easier, right? Accounting becomes like immutable and just like automatically generated and easier. And look, I think these things are going to transform the world. And I think that like what Jesse Pollock at Base is doing is like part of that story. I think like what Swift and Chainlink are doing is part of that story. And like, maybe that's just like kind of the narrative that starts to like come into focus coming into the new year, that it is just like real world applications of like the very basic principles of this industry start to like drive a lot of like speculation and draw in a lot of builders and like kind of kickstart the actual innovative part of the cycle. I'm really concerned right now because I don't see it yet. Like I don't feel the excitement. I feel the nihilism,
Yeah, no, it's fair. It's fair. And who knows what things are going to bring. But like I could, for example, see the new year rings in. We're going to have a change in administration, and we've talked a bit about some of the pros and cons of that. But we will get to see like what things look like with a lighter regulatory touch on crypto. And I'm hopeful and optimistic that will actually like bring a lot of the builders back to crypto when they see. When they see like that they can actually like launch projects and maybe not have to be looking over their shoulder quite as much because of like the heavy-handed approach from the past 4 years. So
let me ask you this, right? Like when in the last cycle, and again, it is very bizarre what happened last time because of COVID, the COVID shock, and then like it's like kind of like a double peaked cycle, right? There or put another way, there was a huge trough in the middle, right? So specifics aside, right? Like when Bitcoin reached like, let's say 25,000, right? So it had gone through the previous all-time high. It had shown like strength, but it wasn't like kind of at that parabolic stage yet. Did it feel like this? Like were all of your discords like dead quiet? Was the only people on crypto Twitter like the people who have been here the whole time sniping at each other? Like, did it feel like this?
Where are we talking here on the map here? Are we talking like right around here?
No. Like
talking about back around here.
No. Okay, right to the right. Like look at oh god, it's so like like see when it first goes parabolic in 2020, right? Like
2020. So we're
see how
talking
there's like a
about,
spike up, it drops down, and then it goes much higher.
so in
Like
2020, it doesn't really, it's still around 13,000. And then only at the end of the year, it shoots up to like about 38,000 or something like that.
okay, fine. This is not the right way to ask this question, right? But
Okay.
like where, based on like how things feel today, like where would you put, not like the price action or like not forecasting, but just the
Mhm.
mood, where would you put that on that chart you have in front of us?
So I actually like, I on late 2020 is when I like started like putting my attention towards crypto. Um like so I got in back around like 2015 or something like that. Way back here where you can't even like see the cycles in the chart. And basically like forgot about it. It's sitting doing nothing. Around this time, like, I start getting texts from people being like,
Yeah.
"Hey, like, do you still own any Bitcoin?" I'm like, "I guess so. Why?" And they're like, "Did you see the price?" And then it collapses. And I like try and follow it during this trough of disillusionment, and it is just awful. Like,
Yeah, there's nothing.
there's nothing. So at this point, it's just Ethereum maxis and Bitcoin maxis sniping at each other on Twitter.
Mhm.
It's not fun. There's nothing interesting going on in the space. Like, I don't even think people are like really building all that much stuff. But then, I get more texts around like 2020. Wait, no, it was text at that point. I think I'm actually like following it at this point. And actually, okay, so yeah, I started getting back into it around here, kind of like early 2020, around the time of like the pandemic, and I start to get tipped off to what's going on in DeFi Summer, and I'm like, holy crap, there's actually something going on here, and
Mhm.
I start like
So
diving
that
into
right
it full
there,
time. Mhm.
right there, you had a moment where you realize, holy crap, there's actually something going on here, right?
Yeah, because at this point, like all the like things I'd heard about Ethereum like 5 years prior to that, when everyone is like saying like, "Oh wow, like Ethereum's going to have all these smart contracts," and I like sit there and start thinking, "Oh, smart contracts could do some cool stuff." But at that point, the technology wasn't there. There wasn't like that many users. And then there was the DAO hack and like all the ICOs that were
Mhm.
just getting like attacked, and I'm just like, I'm not looking in this space. Um, but then at this point, I'm like looking at it and I'm feeling FOMO. I'm like, oh wow, it's actually happening, and I'm being left behind. And if I don't dive into this now, I'm going to miss out. So I do
Mhm.
like start diving in, and like things start shooting up in 2020. At this point, though, there's like DeFi summer is kind of in full swing, right? Like
Right,
there's
yeah.
actually like all these applications being built out. There's actually all these cool technologies. It's not really till around Do Kwon and that whole collapse, like 2022, where I start being like, oh shoot, we are going to be in a bear market, and then we've been stuck in a bear market for
Sure,
what
sure, sure,
feels like
sure.
forever. So that's
Sure,
the brief
so
history of crypto illustrated.
as seen by Curve Cap. Right, but I guess
You want me to
what
compare the vibe, right?
I just what makes me nervous is that like I don't understand what is going to be our DeFi summer for this cycle.
You don't think it's pump.fun?
I mean, maybe it is, right? Like maybe it is. Um and
So
I think
what if it's something like super nerdy? What if it's something like you actually see like major banks getting on board and conducting settlements in the amounts of trillions of dollars?
great. Yeah, I mean maybe
And it doesn't affect retail users. It's just like the actual like big bucks start to actually move on chain.
yeah, I mean I guess what I would say is that proves my theory of what this technology is for very correctly over the last like 3 years that we've been talking about it, but it also just like kind of shows that we is it sorry, does that kind of imply that the innovation is done?
I don't think that necessarily implies that. I think it's more like the innovation that you first saw 5 years ago actually hits fruition, and by that point, like maybe there's like yet more waves to come. I mean, how many waves of internet like do we think the internet was just done with innovation, right? Like in 2000, like you could barely use a credit card on the internet, and that's when that first .com boom was happening. And then all of a sudden, credit cards came in, e-commerce, and everyone's like, okay, that's it. And then social media came along, and then
Yeah.
ride sharing came along, and it's like there's still continue to be innovations that are finding their way on the internet. Like I think we're still probably in that like super early, like back when Yahoo was trying to like build a directory of the web. I think like that's the comparable level we are in terms of like internet to Web3.
Fair. And this is probably not that fruitful. We can go back to top signals, right? But I think just what I've been thinking a lot about, right, is like what brought me in was like first I heard Hayden Adams describe Uniswap on a Bloomberg podcast, and then I found Bankless, right, and like there was so much energy around this, like like DeFi Summer had been running for like a year, right, but like there was still so much innovation in DeFi and so much energy, and new things were happening every day, and like that hooked me, and I think that hooked a lot of people and brought in the energy that like created that peak that your mouse is hovering over, and also like brought in a lot of like long-term people, right? And I'm worried that that doesn't seem to be forming in a way that DeFi Summer was like kind of clearly like starting to get its legs up by like this point in the cycle last time. Does that make sense?
I guess so. So there was definitely like this phase, like way back in. So it was 2019. I was starting to look into it, and yeah. So even as the start of DeFi Summer was hitting, it was still super confined to like a very small niche of people. And I almost feel like that's the parallel to where we are in some ways, although it's like not even fair to say, because like I'm only talking like my window's only this like super small world of DeFi, right? Like I don't actually know what's going on with meme coins. Like I've heard of pump.fun, but I didn't know it was like such a big culture that they were shooting dogs. Like so like I say that it feels like super niche at the moment, like ready to explode, but there actually are like all these like weird pockets within all of crypto. So yeah, it's tough to figure this out. I do know that like as far as like DeFi Summer goes, and what we're seeing now, like if you want to like look for top signals, which is what the theme of this podcast is supposed to be, there is this really interesting trend where like for the past like several years, like it's been DeFi winter, and I follow Curve. Curve's kept building, Curve's kept shipping. A lot of other protocols just like disappeared at the beginning of DeFi winter, right? And all of a sudden, in the past week or two, they're all coming back, right? So Olympus DAO is back. Andre Cronje is hinting that he's going to relaunch solidly. Ren Protocol, out of the blue, like yesterday or today, is starting to make some noise that they're coming back. And Daniel Sesta is dropping hints he might revive Wonderland with Sifu.
Mm-hmm. And sorry, which
that
one
doesn't scream top signal? I don't know what does.
It's either Danielle or Andre. Which one is in charge of Phantom that's turning into Sonic?
That's Andre Cronje.
Yeah. So that's another one that and you put this on our notes, and instead of doing research, I thought I'd just ask you on stream. So you say Olympus is coming back. What is going on with Olympus?
So it's not on my beat. So let me just pull up their Twitter feed and see what they are saying they're up to.
Yeah. No, yeah. And I think I do think I don't really know if it's like Olympus itself, the original Olympus, was for sure a top signal. Like honestly, that was the first time. I do think that in order to like be a legitimate part of this industry, everyone has to take a bath on their first cycle, and like Olympus is where I took my bath, right? Like pretty hard. But I don't.
Well, this Friday, November 29th, they're having a community call in the Olympus DAO Discord, so you can hop right in and ask the questions. Oh, the re-education camps you'll go.
Interesting. Yeah, and so it's like Zeus is back. Yeah.
So I think that's it. Is Zeus has kind of returned. So I don't know where he was at. Like maybe he was like working a corporate job for the past couple of years and then decided the grass is greener. But here's that DeFi energy you wanted, right?
No.
You said you want DeFi energy and you're not seeing it.
You're focusing on the DeFi part. I'm focusing on the energy part.
Okay.
and I just can't imagine there's a lot of people that are like really excited about. I don't know. I
Well,
mean, whatever. Like,
Olympus, I think there would be actually. I think that like a bat signal went out to the community, and I think the Omis came right back.
but here's the thing, right? Like, I worry about the. I mean, this is like, we're trying to make good content here, right? So I'll say something controversial, which is like, I think that there is a group of people that formed around Olympus that like can be summarized by just saying 9-9, right? That like kind of learned some of the, in my opinion, some of the more horrifying lessons of Olympus and thought, this is an incredible mechanism. Let's throw it on everything, right? And like, you can look at like some of the projects that came like in Olympus's heyday, right? Like things like Redacted Cartel or like any of the other just like straight up Ohm forks that were like just repackaging the same like kind of scammy tokenomics and like running the play again. Or then you can look at like, okay, there's something about like Berachain and how like that like stemmed from like those same guys. And so, I do think it like there is something like curious about how all these guys kind of like did Homer Simpson into the bush for 2 years. And we'll see, right? But like if Zeus is back, like I don't know when Berachain's going to come out, but it will, right? Or maybe it will. And yeah, I don't really know if that's great.
Well, I liked Ohm a little bit, except I'm like the one who bought like a little bit of Ohm right at the peak of DeFi summer. So it's like the last token I had before everything just like started collapsing. So I do hold a small grudge about it for that. But like you mentioned Redacted, I think Redacted like did pretty good and kept like shipping and building throughout the rest of the bear market and like has gotten to a pretty cool place. So I don't really see like the argument that like that Olympus DAO is necessarily flawed. I think if they kind of kept pushing and kept innovating, they probably would be fine. But they still like they relaunched and they're back, so maybe they are going to be fine.
Yeah, no. I mean, maybe my point is not a point, right? I do think that let's put it this way, right? Like Top Signal is like really like leaning into 3-3 and 9-9 is a top signal, right? Because like that stems from this like the up only kind of mentality, right? And like it only really works if you're in the euphoria of like thinking like we're all just like rocketing to the moon together. And like I just hope that the like Olympus coming back online doesn't bring back that same energy of like let's leverage everything together.
So I think that is probably like part of the bigger like problem with DeFi a little bit, which is like when all the markets are going up in crypto, it's not tough to like create any kind of like protocol or system that's going to like produce positive returns, right? Like that's like, I mean, just the sad thing about the space is like it doesn't matter really how much you like try and like outsmart it. You can't do too much better than just buying Bitcoin, as it turns out. Or like I used to think buying Bitcoin or buying Ethereum. It hasn't done very well for me because I rotated my Bitcoin into Ethereum, which was a mistake. But so it goes.
It's a mistake if you sell everything today.
I'm still happy with my Ethereum because I actually want Ethereum because I would use it. I'm not going to use my Bitcoin, so I still like stand by it. I just like point out like there's like a million like DeFi tokens, which like people try to be like, oh, should we buy this DeFi token or that DeFi token? None of them actually did that good, right? They went up when Ethereum went up, usually by a bit more, and they went down when Ethereum went down, usually by a lot more. Obviously there's some exceptions, but don't overthink it, right? Just if you want to get upside on the space, like pick a few like tokens that are fairly large cap and ride with it.
Yeah, and I don't really know how this ladders into top signals. I'll figure it out as we have this conversation, right? But like, I am very curious to see how this meta that developed over the last 2 years of super, super high FDV, low float tokens changes the dynamics that are going on, right? And like, I do think that part of the reason that meme coins have taken off is because during this time when the only people that stuck around kind of understand the way the game is played, like, have just recognized that by like the nature of the structure of many of these tokens, like you just can't speculate that well on them, right? Because like constantly new supply is coming in, and I think that meme coins just um, you're like trading off like the promise of utility for like the realization that like we weren't really playing a game about utility anyway, and at least like let's just like call a spade and like not have to worry about like who's going to dump on us like out of left field. And so, yeah, like who knows if things like 3.3 and 9.9 are really possible in a paradigm where like surrounding all the speculation are just like much, much bigger bags, like waiting to just totally decimate whatever like kind of craziness happens in the middle.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like the people who stuck around, I feel like there's like a handful of people who were maybe like attached to like real projects that kind of like proved sustainable or able to like stick around. Or like maybe just like pretty smart people who are like really committed to it. So it's like a lot of people at the extreme right end of the bell curve, let's say. And then the middle like seemed to have just completely disappeared, and you just got only the like far left of the bell curve like still stuck around and seem to be like gambling on meme coins. Maybe I don't get it. Maybe there's something to meme coins that I just don't understand, but it just seems like the aggressively dumb people who like are probably don't have enough money and are just like hoping to buy a lottery ticket and like end up just gambling all their money away. It's like it's actually like kind of sad to watch.
No, for sure, man. Like I very much understand what's going on in meme coins as like, the reality of why crypto is so interesting for 99% of people is because like inequality is so bad and people's lives are so desperate. And it like that is super relevant and every day more and more relevant in the US, but it is like 30,000 times more relevant in every other country, right? And
Right.
so, I think that like why meme coins work, right, is because it does strip away like it just gets to like the core of why most people are here is they just want to get rich as quickly as possible. And this provides like, I'm sure if you look at the numbers, right, like the only people getting rich on meme coins are the ones that are already rich, right? And everyone else is just like getting completely hosed. But
They're the ones that are pulling the rug on people, basically, are the only ones getting rich, right?
I don't know. I mean, like,
That's my impression. I don't follow the space.
yeah, I don't know. Like for something like Pepe, right? Which, or I don't, what are the huge ones?
I don't
Right?
know.
Like,
I mean, do you think Trump is going to establish a national fart coin reserve?
do you think Trump is going to launch World Liberty?
He's got Justin Sun investing into it. Did you see that?
I mean, do you see how much money Barachain's raised?
Justin Sun put $30 million into World Liberty, making him now the largest investor. So in a way, Justin Sun is Trump's boss.
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe that's bullish for the space. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. So let's tack back just to top signals, right? So we've talked a lot about meme coins. I think like the only thing, like unless you have anything like pretty poignant left to say, I do think so. Our mutual friend Crypto Condom has put a tweet out there that quote tweeting Crypto Don Alt, which he's the Crypto Don Alt is saying like meme coins are tired. The amount of people that need to come in it's just like not sustainable, like all Ponzi's, right? And in Crypto Condom, what I really, this is not a new point that anyone's made, but what I like that Condom has like layered on top of that is not only are the numbers getting so big that in order to keep the engine running, you just need like an unsustainably large amount of new capital that's about to get hosed. But like that is reflecting in just like how degenerate the actual activities of people are getting, right? And that reflects back to just like the nonsense that you were talking about earlier, like killing dogs and hanging yourself and like shitting all over yourself, right? Like, you know, I think that there is something very much to be said for that mirrors to me that the degeneracy at like, let's say, Three Arrows Capital or at Luna or at FTX like really started to increase as like the runway was running out for these schemes. And so I don't know, I thought it was worth like kind of tying the financials to the actual actions of people to understand what's going on here.
Yeah. Well, I did like that you brought up like Three Arrows Capital and our friends Do Kwon SBF is like I mean when we look at top signals, like that's sort of it to me, because like I'm sitting here at that time focused on like what I consider like the innovative slice of DeFi, and there's just like these complete like galactic level hucksters who are like looking at the space and saying like, how can I like just basically take a dump over this entire space to like transfer wealth to me, and doing it at such like a colossal size that it tanked the entire industry for the rest of us. And that is like the sort of like cycle that we're never going to be able to get rid of, right? Because we've done nothing. Like you and I have been here. There's been nothing that's been done in the past few years that's going to prevent whoever was watching SBF and taking notes and thinking I can do it better. Nothing is going to stop them. So as soon as the next hype cycle like actually starts to manifest itself, and as soon as you start to see people like I agree with you. Like we're not at the like level of like DeFi euphoria that we were a few years ago, but it's going to happen at some point if we do see like a proper bull run, and there's going to be some like colossal like jerks that come in and ruin it for us, and we're going to see another collapse. And like that's really the top signal I'm looking for. Like when do we start to see the SBFs and the Do Kwons of this cycle emerge?
Yeah, something listeners to the Bloomberg Odd Lots podcast will know where I got this, right? But I'm in the middle of this book about the bankruptcy of Caesar's Palace Entertainment or Caesar's Entertainment or whatever in 2015. And, just like walks through just like basically how like just brutal hedge funds and like the game of high finances, and like what is so just shockingly not shocking to me is like every single player in one of like the truly dirtiest, like most fraudulent bankruptcy cases, in recent history or like whatever so far, right? Like literally every single one of them were working together at Drexel Lambert, which was Mike Milliken's firm in the 80s, which like for those of you that don't know, like he invented junk bond financing. He like kind of he was like in the background of everything that was going on in Wolf of Wall Street. He was like the real guy that was fueling most of that, and ended up like having to pay billions of dollars in fines, and I believe even going to jail because like he was actually a fraudster, like he was the SBF of that time. And so I just it makes me feel a little bit better about crypto, right? Because like the things that we're seeing here is not new. Like this is what happens in TradFi, and like somebody grows a bubble too big, like they're clearly doing illegal things, they go down for it, and whether it's SBF or Mike Milliken. But really, like when those guys fall from their like spot as master of the universe, like the guys that were just around him like are the next guys, And so like I'm not really worried about Caroline or Gary Wang or like Ryan's. I know it's not Salami. Yeah. But like I am like I will have my eyes out for like the people that were at all of these firms and like where they end up next. And like they learned how SBF became the master of the universe. And a lot of people will look at what happened to SBF and be like, wow, I'm really happy that I wasn't a part of that and I'm not him. And a lot of people will be like, I could run that same play and just not get caught.
Yeah. So if you're looking for a book recommendation, which furthers this thesis, take a look at Devil Take the Hindmost. Have you read that one?
No, but sounds cool.
Oh man, it basically goes through the history of like financial speculation and bubbles, and if you're talking about none of this is new, like all this, like the book at least starts back in like the 1600s with Holland.
Yeah, the
And
tulip.
it's really true that none of this is new. Like every single financial scheme that we've like dreamed up that's on the blockchain is like child's play compared to some of the financial like instruments that they were concocting for hundreds of years, essentially since the like beginnings of modern finance. The one thing that we've not actually like gotten to in crypto, which makes me convinced we could get some more epic sized bubbles yet to come, is that like it's this point it's like not super integrated with governments. Right. Like at the moment, crypto's kind of at arm's length. But imagine once we actually start like bringing in like a much more serious degree, like for example, like the National Bitcoin Reserve, like that would actually like institutionalize Bitcoin and some of the levels it can go to. So basically, like if you think crypto bubbles are big now, you ain't seen nothing just yet.
Yeah. Speaking of nation states playing in the game, so another top signal is we've got Bukele, right? What's his first name? Nayib or so whatever. Bukele, the president of El Salvador, is like literally shit posting his country's Bitcoin portfolio on Instagram, right? And I think the actual tweet is a just like the picture of the graph of like price going up and then like two kissing emojis. But man, that is like people who like made sizable bets, like starting to dunk on people. That is for sure a top signal, right? It's like Saylor's actions right now. That has to be a top signal.
Yeah, it's a good question. So, I mean, for Nayib Bukele's case, like I kind of like give him a little credit because like people were dunking on him all the time when Bitcoin was super low, and he'd made this huge investment, and they were like trying. That's what you do on Twitter, right? You dunk on people if you were like a successful account. So,
well, okay, hold on. This is
people are dunking on him. He's dunking back. Like I kind of get it, right?
I think one. I don't think it's like appropriate for a president of a country to be dunking on Twitter, right? Full stop. But I live in America, and my president,
right.
So it is what it is, right? But I think more it's like you're not going to get a crash, right, until you have someone like Su Zhu feeling invincible. And like I don't like this. I don't like Saylor or Bukele or like these people like starting to come out and be like, can't touch me, can't touch me, can't touch me. Because like it is not an automatic harbinger of the end, but it is a necessary thing that it starts to happen before an end, right? And so like maybe we're going to see these shit posts for like a whole nother year or like 2 years or 5 years, right? Who knows how long but this could be the super cycle, right? But I do think that this is, if not a top signal, like it's a foreshadowing.
No, I don't think it's super cycle. I just think markets are cyclical. We're always going to see boom bust cycles. I don't think it's the top, to be clear. Like I think that this is probably closer to the start of the run. Not financial advice, right? Like but I just think that like all the way up, people in previous cycles, people have been like dunking on everyone, and that's like one of the things like starts the fuel in the bubble. Is people are just like they see the confidence of the people who like already made like pretty good gains, and like Bitcoin's still going up, and then at some point you get the people like mortgaging their houses to buy more Bitcoin. I'm not hearing yet people doing that. You get the really sad. So the real ultimate top signal is when my parents ask me about when they're feeling FOMO, right? Because that means whatever like kind of like whatever news that they're watching, something about it is penetrating through to them who don't follow financial news at all. That like I need to buy Bitcoin right now. And whenever they're feeling that, that's the sign I need to go. They're already asking me, like they've noticed it's high, but they're not yet asking me to invest. Once they're asking me to invest, like something has gotten into them where like, basically like if you look at it as like exit liquidity, where someone in the media has like decided to get pushed through to these like older class who aren't financially sophisticated, that they need to get into this bubble now and make the exit liquidity, because my parents always end up the exit liquidity.
Yeah. And I've seen like everywhere on Twitter people calling top signals of like, oh my God, like my friends are reaching out, like people are asking me like it's the top, right? Like people are coming and asking, right? And like I'm sure you've experienced it. I have too. Like, but I've only experienced from people who like were my friends, or are my friends, right? And like have like they just see and some like Twitter or like on Instagram or whatever, they'll see like one time like Bitcoin had a crazy day, and then they'll think like, oh, Bitcoin, like I automatically associate that with Rex, and just check in to see if he's happy, kind of thing. Like I don't see despite the fact that we've all gotten these calls or these texts of like, oh, crypto's doing pretty well, huh? Right? Like again, you're more veteran than me, right?
Well,
but like
you've also been in the space long enough to know that when it's going down, they also are like, "Oh, bet you're sad you invested in crypto, right?" Like, yeah.
Sort of. They just kind of forget that it exists when it's going down.
No, I mean, they also like, I told you so. So I mean, also we saw Matamore, our friend here, like was saying like friends and family barely bring it up. Like, I think the level of chatter I'm getting is kind of appropriate to like kind of early bull run cycle. Just to be honest, like people noticing, but not the FOMO yet. It's when it's like peak FOMO from the normies. That's when it strikes me as top signal.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think like when the conversation starts to switch from like, oh, like Bitcoin's going up to like what specific coins should I buy? Like that's like when these signals start to become top signals. And maybe like kind of what we're triangulating now is there are a lot of things that eventually are top signals, but they don't start as top signals, right? They start as basically like ignition signals, right?
Yeah.
And like Bukele taking laps, or like my wife's like coworker at like a Friendsgiving saying like, oh man, you must be doing pretty happy. Like those are not top signals, they're ignition signals, but those are the things that start to morph into like their euphoria that we all need to be looking for. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, so to me, what has to happen for the next bear market is a major bubble, or several major bubbles need to collapse, right? Because that's what happened last time. Is there was like several incredibly unsustainably large, like overvalued protocols that were systemically connected that all collapsed like dominoes, and I don't yet see I just don't see that in the space. Like, what could collapse tomorrow that would like I mean like Tether, right? Like I guess Tether could collapse tomorrow. Bitcoin is what it is. Ethereum's not overvalued by any stretch. Like none of the like massive pillars within crypto are like massively overvalued in such a systemic way that if they collapse, it would just take down the entire space.
MicroStrategy.
Maybe, yeah, I guess so. But I mean, if MicroStrategy collapsed, it might drop. Maybe its stock might drop in half. Is that going to affect anything we're doing on Ethereum? Like Ethereum's barely. Oh, okay, yeah, Ethereum will tank too. Lucky us.
I mean, like if it like
Ethereum's barely budged, right? Like Ethereum hasn't like run up to an unsustainable level, in my opinion.
Yeah, I just don't want
to. If Ethereum runs up to 20K tomorrow and Bitcoin's up at 2.5 million tomorrow, like yes, like that's massively overvalued. Nothing about what I'm seeing screams overvalued.
Yeah, my only point is that if like tomorrow we found out that like MicroStrategy is like fueled by like let's say like straight up fraud, and like in order to like make do on like all of this debt that they've taken, they need to just start dumping Bitcoin. Like that could kill the cycle tomorrow, like before it even starts, right?
That would definitely kill the cycle for Bitcoin. But would it affect anything in DeFi outside of like usually the usual price action that we see? Like that wouldn't affect Tether. That wouldn't affect any of the Aave, Curve.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you, right? Except for it's just like it would make this
right?
a less attractive of an industry, right? And like the marginal dollar, which is the dollar that pushes prices up, like would just be less interested in crypto if like Bitcoin collapses tomorrow. I do believe that.
It's possible. On the other hand, like, it wouldn't like so like one of the big trends in crypto is stable coins, and it wouldn't really like affect tokenization of dollars too much. Like there might be some reluctance, but I think that like there would be enough smart salespeople out there that would be able to say like that's Bitcoin, USDC is still going to get minted and Ethereum's still like plugging away. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just don't see the like systemic connection of MicroStrategy to anything outside the kind of like Bitcoin ecosystem itself.
No, I don't. Of course, there's not
Does it take down El Salvador with it? Like, what's the?
No, I think it just take down Bitcoin, and I think that like I don't know if the industry can thrive with like Bitcoin transforming from like the main engine that brings in new people and drives like the top line number of like the value of the industry. If that suddenly turns into an anchor around our neck, like I
don't
think
know. You're like more of an Ethereum maxi than me. Like we want Bitcoin to collapse so Ethereum can take number one, right?
I mean,
we want Ethereum and Bitcoin to decouple. Like let's rip the Band-Aid off and make it happen.
Yeah, no, man, but I just think that if that happens, like we're in for like a 5-year crypto winter. And I don't think that like Ethereum's going to die because of it. I just think that like, there's going to be less dollars interested in like VC. There's going to be less dollars interested in like buying tokens. Like,
yeah, it is true that once the next like bear market hits, it's going to suck, right? It's going to be another 5 years of like only the true believers, like the circular firing squads, all the things that like make bear markets not fun.
But that's what just freaks me out about right now.
It would suck if it started tomorrow. I'm not going to lie. Like if this past 2 weeks was the entirety of the bull market,
yeah,
man, I don't know if I have enough juice to get through another 4 years of bear posting.
Yeah, I guess like, going back to where we started this conversation, like what freaks me out about right now is I feel like not only are we still in the circular firing squad stage of like the community, right? But it's almost like increased and gotten just like more like infighting in the last like month or so. And like, I guess my question in trying to like pick apart your experience of the last cycle is like, does that just continue until like it's true euphoria and we all kind of forget about the sniping because our ecosystem is doing so well we don't have time to think about like Solana or Pump.Fun? Or like does that need to resolve itself in first and then like the euphoria can come after that?
I think that's actually a perfectly apt analogy because like when I think of like the depths of like the last like super long bear cycle of like late 2018 to 2019, like it was still like moribund. It was still like completely slow and garbage, and like all the worst trends are getting worse. And then at some point, like we got through so much, like probably a year plus of euphoria, and it just papered over all the wounds. And it got to the point where like crypto could do no wrong. It was going to be flippening everything. And, people who are still stuck in their web 2 or like traditional jobs were like panicking that they saw everything was going to get taken over. I'm just not seeing that like level of like outsized panic. I still think that this is like, there's still frost on the ground. We're starting to see a few rays of sunlight, and we're wondering if this is summer.
Yeah, no. And I think, the premise of like this show, which like hopefully we touched on, but we were kind of all over the place, was to talk about top signals. Like, I guess to close it out, like what I would say is like, I definitely don't think that, that this is like, that we're near the end of the cycle. Right. And I think that it's because like one of the reasons is I just think that we haven't yet taken the things that we've built during the bear and applied it to anything that is interesting outside of our industry. And I think that that is going to be like that's just on the table right now. And I think once that happens, like is really what is like the energy of the next bull cycle, right? The DeFi of the next bull cycle. And maybe it's this, what we talked about, like Jesse Pollock and Base / Swift and Link, like getting real people in the real world to actually leverage this technology. Maybe it's things like how ZK enables new use cases that don't really look like blockchain, like AI or, like more traditional compute. Like maybe it's something that's happening in some corner that I'm not even aware of yet. But like, if this technology has value outside of just like the most nihilist capitalist speculation, like we need to see that.
Yeah, no, it's fair. It's fair. And I just bringing up some hopium on screen for people who are concerned that this is it. It's all over. Like the people who follow the trading, which is not me. I'm not a trader. The people who follow trading say that like it looks like the BTC sell wall has vanished at 100K, strong support. So maybe it's not as good as we get. Maybe we are going to see Bitcoin hit 100K. No, I take your point. I think that we as an industry did not, despite all the circular firing squads and all the like, all the like as bad as it's gotten within the sector, we haven't learned the lessons. We haven't internalized the lessons. And if we actually want crypto to, in sort of my opinion, it's going to be really tough for crypto to succeed because you can't really have like a whole of society technology built on like these insane bull runs and crashes, right? Like it's too tough for normie people who don't have a stomach. Like crypto will make it when it's like delivering slow, steady 10% gains each year, and that's all you're hoping for, as opposed to like 2,000% gains one year and then minus 99% gains the next year, the losses the next year. Like,
you know, finish it.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's just it, right? Like, I think we need to get to like some, like we want, when crypto's boring, that's when people are going to be able to like actually like predictably build application layers atop it. You can't really do it when like everyone's flocking to it at once and then everyone's running away from it. Like because you couldn't sell anything to normies for the past 3 years because they didn't want to touch crypto. You want it to be like, something slow, steady, and predictable where they're like, okay, I know that like no matter like what happens, like there is something to build on here.
In the vein of like everything that's happening here has happened before, and like nothing's new here. What you just said, paraphrasing, right? But like you can't build something on something that is like so not just cyclical, but like so aggressively like high highs and low lows. My first thought was like, well, explain oil to me then, right? Because like that's a good point. Has been just as volatile, but like we have built our whole society around it, right? And I think part of that is that like,
although the counterpoint to that is that like my price at the gas pump in the past few years has gone between like $2 to $5.
Sure.
Which is quite a lot, right? But if it was going from 30 cents in 1 year and then the next year it costs $80 and then the year after that it's 50 cents, like that's like the kind of level of unpredictability crypto is when it's like.
But I think that's what you would have seen if you were looking at gas prices in like the 1910s.
Right. So like, which I think furthers my argument that like today it kind of stabilized and it all the predictions of like how oil might have been transformational did pan out, right? It did revolutionize our economy.
Mm-hmm.
Like our economy is built on oil.
I mean, I think ultimately we're saying the same thing, right? Which is like that just because there's volatility in the nascent stages of a technology doesn't mean that like long term you can't build like really like hard sustainable things, right? But I do think that like people are not interested in stuff that like goes slow and steady, right? But when things like shoot up really quick, that's like that brings in interest and like that gets people building on it. And then sure, like the crash like pushes out most people, right? But I stayed, you stayed, right? Like Mitch from Curve stayed, Stani from Aave like stayed. And I actually would almost take like the opposite perspective that you do, that like you can't build anything big and world changing unless like it has this dynamic of boom and bust, because like there's something about humans, how we're hardwired, and something about capitalism. And there's just something about how society works that actually drives things in a way that consistency doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, there's sort of a maxim in finance, which is like, you can't, deliver 10x returns forever. Like at a certain point you become the economy. Bitcoin doesn't have that many more 10x's before it becomes the economy. And once it becomes the economy and it's just subject to the kind of normal bear bull swings of the market, like that's actually a good place for crypto to be. Because I
Mhm.
think people can ride out the normal like recession cycle. I just think that like they can't necessarily ride out like the crazy boom bust cycle that we've seen so far. So once it's at that, like, and then I think it's predictable. People can build against it, and you'll lose a lot of the speculative interest because they're not going to see where you can get a 10x, 100x gain from it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my friend, I could wax poetic about this stuff all day, but we're coming at the top of the hour here. Do you anything else you want to cover before we head out?
No, man. Just I hope that everyone who is still here listening to this, like, whether or not you celebrate Thanksgiving, like, I hope everyone's thankful for all the cool stuff that's going on. And
Yeah. No, for sure, man. And I think that for me, the thing that I'm like really desperate for and looking for in the short term, it like I'm like all everyone else, like I look at the charts every day, right? But like that is not really where my like existential dread is at all. Like what I hope to be fixed is the energy, right? And like you and I are in some like small groups and like discords and stuff, right? That it's just not the same as it was, right? Like it doesn't seem like people are that invested and like want to debate about stuff and want to push the space forward in the same way that it really was in 2021. And like I'm sure all this stuff is happening like kind of in the background in like within your team or like in like one-on-one conversations or stuff, but what I'm looking for is that like real sense of like positive sum, like let's everyone get in the arena, like let's just like talk about this, let's be excited about this. And like that I understand that phase only lasts so long before true mania and euphoria kicks in and things get like scary again. But that's what I'm looking for, is just like where's the energy.
all right, so let me know when that energy hits, and when you find that, because that's the top signal.
No, okay, fair enough. I mean, then I don't know what it says about this industry that like no one cares until like it's too late.
No, I think it's gonna get smoothed out because I do see the fact that like 4 years ago, the previous bear market, there wasn't a working DeFi scene during the bear market. This year, like it limped along, but it existed, and I think it's gonna do some cool things when it starts to see a flow of people coming in.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, as always, it was a pleasure, and let's find something less downer to talk about next week.
I don't know. It's that we'll definitely find some fun stuff to talk about for next week. Maybe
No, and again,
I'll.
this is an optimistic time, right? Like let's just walk out on this, right? Like we at the same time we have like the 4-year Bitcoin cycle, the halving cycle, which you may or may not believe in, right? You have macro monetary conditions really loosening up after like a purposeful wealth destruction in order to stop inflation. You have a brand new regulatory regime which like flat out says like fuck it, crypto, like we are into it. Like we are going to put all the people that like genuinely I don't know if they genuinely believe, but like they openly say like we want crypto, we want to like encourage this, we want this to happen. And yeah, on top of that, like we've given like I would have liked more time, but we've given some time to wash away some of the stains that like were given to us by SBF and Alex Mashinsky and like all that, and so like I definitely think that this is a bullish time. Like I definitely don't think we're experiencing the top. And I do think that whatever you can like rightly call a top signal does not mean that this is the end. But yeah, man, it's just like a weird time. It is a weird time.
Yeah, people were calling top signals all the way up.
Yeah.
Last time.
People were calling top signals all last year in 2023 when things really actually sucked.
Yeah, no, there's like I always like take to heart the fact that like people are really bad at calling tops and bottoms.
Mhm.
The one thing they're good at is calling not the top and not the bottom. And I can definitively say this is not the bottom.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Fair enough. All right, cool, man. Well, it's always a pleasure, and let's do this again next week.